Welcome to the kill-death ratio, where I count all my kills and all my deaths. Today, I'm playing Hogwarts Legacy, released in 2023 and developed by Avalanche Software, who are known for bangers such as Hannah Montana's Spotlight World Tour and Cars 3 Driven to Win. A studio delegated to producing Disney spin-off games rightfully had Potter fans concerned about the quality of Hogwarts Legacy, and I'm happy to say they crushed it, succeeding in capturing the beauty and wonder of Hogwarts and its surrounding area while making the combat fun and surprisingly challenging at times. The game takes place well before the events of the books in the late 1800s. You play as a fifth-year student new to Hogwarts who discovers they have the rare ability to see and wield ancient magic, which comes in handy against the Goblin Ranrock and his followers when they seek to claim that magic to use against wizard kind. Our protagonists may only be 15 or 16 years old, but they have no problem putting their enemies down permanently, so let's count them up. We begin by reading an item all Potter fans longed to receive in the mail as children, our Hogwarts acceptance letter, and then we pivot into the character creation screen. I didn't aim to make my character look like me, and instead wanted to make him look somewhat like a prick while giving him identifying features that show he's been through some shit. I select normal difficulty, and we cut to our protagonist and Professor Eleazar Fig outside a carriage getting ready to leave for Hogwarts. Fig's buddy from the Ministry of Magic, George Osric, apparates nearby and urges us into the carriage, taking one suspicious look back before climbing in. As the carriage lifts off into the sky, we can see Willy Wonka himself has been spying on us, and we cut to a brief credit sequence with the companies involved with making the game. Warner Brothers acquired Avalanche from Disney back in 2017 with the sole purpose of developing a game set in the wizarding world. They put together a team of incredibly passionate people that loved this universe and granted them the necessary time to actually complete the game instead of releasing it unfinished, which is a breath of fresh air these days when more and more games seem to be rushed out and patched after release. On our way to Hogwarts, they remark on how rare it is for a student to start so late. Fig has been tasked with getting me up to speed, so I'll be on an equal level as my fellow fifth-year classmates. George tells me I'm in great hands, while sucking up to Fig a little bit.
Oh, is that your ass? Oh, closer to the hole, sir?
He shows us the greatest magic trick of all by pulling a newspaper out of his ass with a picture of Ranrock, the leader of a goblin rebellion, and asks Fig if he knows about him. And as they chat, I spot the silhouette of a dragon in the clouds below us. George tells Fig it was his wife that alerted him to Ranrock's doings and gave him some cylindrical device made with goblin metal. Before Fig can ask what George was doing with his wife, I chime in, inquiring about a strange glow coming from the item. Using my magical phalanges, I open it up right before the carriage is fucking chomped in half. Holy shit! We watch as the dragon crushes George, and upon seeing death for the first time, I turn around to see the Thestrals carrying the much lighter carriage behind them. Now suddenly looks like a great time to try some skydiving. So I attend a class not otherwise offered at Hogwarts and freefall with old Figgy until he pulls the key I uncovered towards us, and we vanish right in the nick of time and appear in the Scottish Highlands near some ruins. We learn the basic cast, which becomes the most commonly used spell in combat to chip away at enemies. After destroying several pots, we cross the bridge repaired by the professor and explore the ruins until I come across a wall that transports us right into Gringotts Bank. We surprise the sleeping goblin who leads us towards Vault 12 and later claims we are the only ones to ever visit it. Our express pass allows us to walk under the Gringotts ride, and about a minute later stop to tell this cantankerous looking son of a bitch which vault we're headed to. I eye the glowing armband as we split ways and eventually enter Vault 12 when the goblin tells us the instructions are to close the door behind us. Fig teaches us Revelio, which is used over,
Revelio,
and over,
Revelio,
and over,
Revelio,
and over,
Revelio,
and over again throughout the entire game. I spot another glowing door, and just like at the ruins, it transports us to a dark room filled with columns and some ancient magic for me to dabble in. A brief puzzle and another spell later, Stone Guardians rain down and get their shit rocked by Professor Fig. When the fight is over, we're separated so that the game can force me to fight on my own to sloppily add the first 10 kills to the count. I walk through a portal into a room containing a pensive, which most of us recognize from the Goblet of Fire. I claim the item floating above it right before Fig comes in and shows me how to use it. We dunk our faces into the pensive to watch two wizards doing what a contractor would take years to accomplish.
Everybody loves contractors.
They allude to a magic so powerful they needed to keep it so hidden that only the ones deemed worthy can locate it. Fig realizes that what I'm seeing is a form of ancient magic, but before we can dip our balls into those details, Ranrock and his goons enter the room demanding whatever we found in here. The banker makes the mistake of confronting this red-eyed menace and pays the iron price for it. Fig tries to hit him with the old wand blast, but his his stream is weak, getting countered by Ranrock with a Force Blast. Suddenly things get very War of the Worlds when a massive Guardian rises up, providing the necessary distraction for us to make our exit and appear in the Forbidden Forest. Fig leads us towards Hogwarts to get to the sorting ceremony while we zoom out to watch an owl get a huff of that sweet train exhaust as we get that beautiful view of Hogwarts and the title card. Fig requests I keep the events of the night secret while he goes to the Ministry of Magic to report on what transpired. Headmaster Phineas Nigellus Black spots Fig peeking inside and looks none too happy about it. Much different than his descendants, Sirius and Bellatrix, Phineas is a pushover that seems annoyed that he even has to do his job. Played by Simon Pegg, who seemed excited to play the great-great-grandfather of fan favorite Sirius Black, despite the character's nature.
Bit of an idiot, really.
After listening to him bitch and moan, I head into the Grand Hall to get sorted. I visited Universal Studios with my wife last year, and before we went, we took the sorting quiz to find out what house we belonged to. My 12-year-old self would be mortified to learn I was sorted into Slytherin, but current me thinks their colors fucking rule and embrace it. The headmaster brings the vibe way down by announcing the cancellation of the Quidditch season, and has the great-great-great-aunt of Ron Weasley escort me to my common room. The following morning, we begin our first full day at Hogwarts in what I can only describe as magical. Avalanche nailed the aesthetic of the castle, making it feel lively with students and points of interest. There are specific students to meet and get quests from, interesting conversations heard just wandering around the grounds, and tons of Easter eggs, including this memorial to Robbie Coltrane that's just right outside of Hagrid's hut. Rest in peace, man. Your first day at Hogwarts is meant to soak it all in, dabble in charms and defense against the dark arts classes to learn some spells, get invited to an unsanctioned dueling club after whooping some ass in class, and extort another student after finding her diary.
But you cannot begin to imagine what I shall be writing about you next.
Eventually, with my day nearly done, I head out to Hogsmeade with my housemate Sebastian in search of supplies and obtain my wand from Ollivanders. After that, I explore Hogsmeade and grab the rest of the items I need to ensure my education here at Hogwarts is successful. Nothing beats first-hand experience though, as a couple trolls attack the village. The 5-0 lures one away while Sebastian and I take on the other one. We chip away at its health until finally we get it low enough and I'm prompted to finish him by showing off my deadly abilities using ancient magic. Officer Singer shows up right after I obliterate the troll and sings my praises.
The makings of an aura, if you ask me.
That's not a bad idea for a game, actually. We head over to the Three Broomsticks to pound some butterbeers when we catch sight of Ranrock and local dark wizard Victor Rookwood having a tense conversation about the troll attack. Neither of us put any points into our sneak abilities as we very clearly stare at them from around the corner and get followed into the Three Broomsticks where proprietress Serona Ryan and the patrons inside strongly encourage them to leave.
Perhaps you didn't hear me. I said, my friend is busy.
After that, Sebastian urges us back to the castle, and we end our first full day at Hogwarts. I begin the next day by dueling other students and pummeling them so bad they drop out of school. This is my first RPG being covered on the channel, and while I try to maintain focus on the story for the purpose of the videos, I found it next to impossible not to dabble in the side content. There are plenty of quests that do not involve combat, so the majority of these quests don't add anything to the overall kill count, like when Zenobia Noak, a young bullied Ravenclaw, asks if I can find her gobstones other students hid around the school. Eventually I come back and decide to keep them for myself, adding to this poor girl's misery at the school.
You'll all be sorry when I learn some more spells.
Yo, what the fuck does she mean by that? One of my priorities was learning every spell that I could, including the unforgivable curses. I complete the assignments given to me by professors as quickly as possible in order to build my spell repertoire and widen my methods of killing. After I'm done harassing my fellow students, I go to Fig's office, who found a map of Hogwarts within the locket we took from the vault before Ranrock attacked us. The map shows traces of magic in the restricted section of the library, but when we try to go, Headmaster Black busts in demanding Fig go to his office. I don't have the patience to sit around and wait, so I seek out my bro Sebastian and formulate a plan to sneak into the library ourselves using the disillusionment charm that camouflages us like a predator. We bypass the prissy little prefects as we enter the library and unlock the restricted area, but Peeves the poltergeist screams, "They're here!" so Sebastian goes after him to do some damage control, while I continue onward and discover the antechamber. Inside are some sentries guarding the secrets within, bumping my kill total up to 25, before I find this goofy ass looking hat and a book above another pensive. It works wonders on the skin, so I dunk my face in it and watch as 4 wizards make it rain on a struggling family. The young girl sees them do this while her brother curses them for making his allergies flare up with all the sudden pollen in the air. We fast forward to learn that the girl's name is Isadora Morganach, and the 4 we saw earlier are professors at Hogwarts. She began at Hogwarts as a 5th year, as did Professor Percival Rackham, both also sharing the same ability as I do with ancient magic. Once the memory is over, I go back up to the library and watch Sebastian get scolded by the librarian, and despite the pressure, he doesn't give me up, proving himself to be a real bro. I run back to Fig to provide an update on what I just witnessed and hand over the book I found. When flipping through it, we spot some missing pages, but there's still plenty to study as Fig requests some alone time with it. I give him his privacy and attend potions class, where I learn to make the Wiggenweld potion, which I'll throw back like Mountain Dew throughout combat to heal myself. And then there's herbology class, where baddie Professor Garlick's stimming up the greenhouse and got me blushing super fucking hard.
Please welcome the newest rose in our garden.
To cool off a bit, I take a stroll around the grounds and run into Natsai Onai from Charms class. She saw Rookwood and his dog Harlow trying to get at me back in Hogsmeade and is concerned about our safety. Natty overheard some details about a large poaching operation that's in the works, but the police are useless and won't help, which calls for some teenage intervention, prompting a questline with our Gryffindor companion, who we'll get to know better later. Just down the road, I encounter some wizards working for Rookwood, called the Ashwinders, harassing a researcher and having the distinct honor of becoming the first humans added to the count. After I save her life, I dip back to the castle and find a scroll left in one of the courtyards. I follow the notes like pieces of candy until I meet the headmaster's house elf Scrope. He knows about the book and its missing pages and promises to tell me more in exchange for my help.
Undermining the headmaster and getting something in return. Continue.
Scrope isn't really interested in this Jeevius though, and simply wants to get a family ring to give to Black. He suspects that the pages and ring are in a grotto further down the beach, being guarded by some Dugbogs. I enter the grotto, where a ghost introduces himself as Dick Jackdaw. Sorry, Richard Jackdaw. He admits he sold the Black family ring and took the pages from the book because they contained a map that led to a cave in the Forbidden Forest where he was mysteriously killed. I agree to meet him in the forest and tell Scrope he works for a little bitch before meeting Jackdaw. I pass by the lake where Harry Potter saved himself from Dementors 100 years later and kill some goblins before entering the cave. Inside are a bunch of 8-legged freaks that push my kill total up until I find Jackdaw's body and the pages being guarded by more stone knights. Once the fighting is over, I locate a large chamber with 4 large portraits in it. One of them is populated by Percival Rackham, who tells me to place the book on the pedestal behind me before he dives into all the details, which means I need to go retrieve it. The music here and throughout the entire game continued to amaze me. Chuck Myers was the lead composer, with Peter Murray and J. Scott Rakoczy also composing music for it. The team did an incredible job of making their own unique tracks that sound like they were made for the Harry Potter films. It gives off the same magical qualities the original John Williams soundtrack established years ago, and I love seeing the various instruments they use to create interesting sounds, like some sheet metal and something called a waterphone. I run up the stairs to find out that the chamber is actually located under Hogwarts, but before I go back to Fig, I finally learn to fly on a broomstick and discover the Room of Requirement, where I spend a lot of time customizing it while growing plants and brewing potions. Afterwards, I link up with Sebastian, who introduces me to their sick-ass secret hangout spot called the Undercroft when things get heavy, and he tells me about his sister Anne, who has fallen ill and cannot attend Hogwarts anymore. When I leave the room, I run into fellow Slytherin Ominous Gaunt, who is none too happy about Sebastian showing me their hangout spot. He may not trust me, and to be honest, I don't really trust him because the Gaunt family went on to produce that famous snake-faced failed baby killer. Finally, I go to Fig's office and lead him to the chamber I discovered. He does what Professor Rackham asks and places the book on the pedestal, revealing a floor map. I'm informed I need to complete 4 trials on my lonesome to prove my worth, with the first one being highlighted in a tower nearby. Fig tells the old man this shit is serious, dude. We don't have time to play these games, so let's hurry it up. But they maintain the trials are necessary to uncover the secret being withheld. I meet Fig at the tower and accidentally roll by this goblin, alerting him to my presence.
Or, I suppose we could charge right into their midst.
Fig finishes him off, and I take out the 9 goblins inside, and even though Petrificus Totalis doesn't actually kill canonically, in the game they freeze up and their bodies fade away into nothingness, so I'm counting them as kills. Inside the tower, Rackham expresses concern over the goblin's presence and tells me to go downstairs to begin the trial. Inside are puzzles and more magical knights that increase my total kill count to over 100 with a boss fight to cap it all off. I find another pensive and watch Rackham's memory showing Isidora's aptitude towards pillars. Her major concern is her father's health though, who was devastated by her brother's death years ago and never recovered from it. She wants to figure out a way to relieve him of his pain, but is warned against such ventures by Rackham. We jump forward in time to see Isidora has become the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, and invites the 4 keepers back to her home. The memory cuts off there, bringing me back to the map chamber to find that the ancestor of Victor Rookwood, Charles Rookwood, has joined us in the chamber. Before we can continue with the trials, Rackham requests some time with Charles and tells us to fuck off. With that quest over, we transition into autumn, and I go to Hogsmeade to talk to Sirona about a goblin we saw her chatting with earlier. His name is Lodgok, and she says I can find him in the Hogshead. He doesn't trust most wizards, but because he trusts Sirona, who trusts me, we form a trust train that has Lodgok ask me to obtain a goblin relic that he believes will help repair his relationship with Ranrock so he can relay information to me. I empty the cave of the Inferi inside, basically just zombies reanimated by dark wizards, and locate a dead Ashwinder but no helmet. Using that dead guy as a clue, I go to a nearby campsite and kill the wizards there along with a troll to obtain the helmet for Lodgok. I travel back to Hogwarts to hear Ignatia Wildsmith, inventor of flu powder, say the same goddamn line 1,000 fucking times. That and our own character mentioning how cozy Hogsmeade is and that all roads seem to lead there has me screaming. Shut up! Shut up! The incessant use of those lines is honestly my biggest complaint about this game, which in the grand scheme of things is a very minor issue and speaks volumes about the quality of the game. I attend Beast class and get paired up with our Hufflepuff companion Poppy Sweeting, whose affinity to animals makes her an easy person to like. I help her fend off a couple Luca Magnatas in the making.
That's really not funny.
Which earns a chance for me to meet a hippogriff up close while Poppy tells me about some poachers she's concerned about. More on that later. Because I've had enough school for the day, I meet Sebastian in his hamlet of Feldcroft, where he claims some goblins have taken up in a castle nearby and were the ones that cursed his sister Anne. All she heard was someone say children should be seen, not heard, before being blasted by an unknown curse. Sebastian aims to find a cure for her ailment, but their uncle will not allow it.
There is no cure!
I talk to Anne, who even believes their uncle to be right, but Sebastian hates their defeatist attitudes and will stop at nothing to find a cure. Feeling murdery after his confrontation with his uncle, Sebastian leads us to some goblins that get a taste of my wand. We search the area until I recognize the place as Isidora's and uncover a hidden stairwell that leads us into a basement with a portal that takes us right into the Undercroft. There's something different about it now, a triptych that has a note pinned to it with a couple missing canvases. But before we separate, Sebastian tells me about a rumor he heard regarding a hidden room of Salazar Slytherins. It's here I'm going to split off from the main story and cover Sebastian's questline. We meet up with Ominous, who warns us about trying to find Slytherin's scriptorium in the corridor we now stand in, stating his Aunt Noctua also sought it out, and when she claimed she found it, she was never heard from again. Well, Ominous, that's because Aunt Noctua is dead as fuck, my dude. She died trapped in this room because she had no one to cast the Cruciatus curse on to open the way forward. That won't be a problem as there's 3 of us here. Without a moment's hesitation, I tell Sebastian I will gleefully learn the curse and use it on him to open the door. Inside is Salazar Slytherin's spellbook that Sebastian takes and later discovers encourages the use of dark magic. Wow, no way! It mentions a relic that can reverse dark curses, which gets Sebastian all giddy. However, Ominous is the opposite.
You swore you'd never engage in anything to do with dark magic again.
No, I didn't.
Later on, I meet Sebastian in an area he recognized from the painting on the triptych and wants to search it for some canvas. We sneak by a bunch of goblins and enter the Overlook Mine. Absolutely shining with enemies, we venture through it, taking out each goblin and spider we see along the way, until we eventually find another room filled with Isidora's research. I uncover another canvas and portal to the Undercroft, and upon placing that beautiful Bob Ross painting in the triptych, Sebastian immediately recognizes the spot. Ranrock's loyalists have taken the mine over there too, and he wants wants to go there right meow. I tell him to pump the brakes a bit because whereas his priority is Anne, mine is learning those unforgivables, and he still needs to teach me the Imperius Curse. We meet outside of a catacomb where Sebastian believes he can find the relic, courtesy of our house daddy's spellbook. We empty the catacombs of its arachnid inhabitants and convince Sebastian to teach me Imperio. We find the relic, and I encourage Sebastian to take it, but yet again, Ominous surprises us and attempts to convince Sebastian to leave it. This creates a strange moment where I convince Ominous to let me use Imperio on him so that he can claim zero responsibility for this mess. Whatever makes you feel better, bro. He steps aside under my control, and while Sebastian feels weird about it, that feeling disappears rather quickly when we get back to Feldcroft and find it under goblin attack, giving me the chance to use my new magic. Once the fighting is over, the last goblin rushes at Anne with murderous intent, prompting Sebastian to cast Imperio and force a brutal end to the goblin. His uncle is mortified he used an unforgivable, despite saving his sister, and threatens to snitch on us if we dabble in the dark arts anymore. Well, snitches get stitches, Solomon! But unfortunately his defense stat is so high, my Imperio attempts fail. Later on, after adding more goblins to my count, I meet Sebastian on the coast scene in the triptych, where he gets aggressive about the keepers not trusting me enough to tell me everything about ancient magic. It gets so annoying, I tell him I'm happy to part ways, but he knows damn well he can't take on all these goblins and spiders himself, and leaves it there. We locate another spot where Isadora left behind traces of her research, and eventually find another pensive showing Isadora taking her father's pain away. Sebastian sees this and believes I can learn to do the same to help Anne, but the guy is impatient and heads to the catacomb after finding out how to use the relic using Slytherin's book. Anne and Ominous fill me in, saying Sebastian has raised up a small army of Inferi and are afraid they'll attack Feldcroft. Anne runs home to get their uncle while Ominous heads inside with me. He barely helps in eliminating the Inferi and eventually comes up with an excuse to leave me alone by saying he's going to Hogwarts to try to do some damage control in case Solomon tries to tell the headmaster about our forays into dark magic. I find Sebastian, who pats himself on the back for being able to control the Inferi, until I tell him he fucking sucks at it because they all attacked me on my way through. Suddenly his uncle appears, yoinking that relic from Sebastian's weak little hands and destroying it. This begins a fight with Sebastian Sallow and the now uncontrolled Inferi, totaling 11 kills here. This dude used to be an Auror and gets his ass handed to him by a couple of kids, so we now know why he used to be one. Sebastian goes too far though, using the killing curse on him right in front of his sister, who finally puts an end to this nonsense by destroying the book. I use this opportunity to ask Sebastian to teach me Avada Kedavra, and then begin to separate myself from him by convincing Ominous to turn him in for his actions. Eventually, Sebastian is expelled from school and faces trial at the Ministry of Magic, ending his story there and easily becoming my favorite questline in the game. With an estimated budget of $150 million, Warner Brothers helped make sure Avalanche created the best game possible, with satisfying side quests like that and a big team of people that absolutely love the wizarding world. You can tell director Alan Tudyk and his team poured their hearts into this amazing game. I dabble in a few side quests here and there, with one of them finding Horcrux and old letters for Sirona, adding 3 kills to the overall count in the process. Next up is Astronomy class, where I meet Amit Thakkar, who I guess serves as the Ravenclaw companion, but only has a couple mainline quests associated with him. He isn't nearly as present as Sebastian, Natty, or Poppy, and simply loves to gaze at the stars, and tells me he knows how to speak the goblin language gobbledygook. After the romantic nighttime stroll with Amit, I meet Natty, who wants to sneak into this castle and obtain proof of Harlow and Rookwood's illegal activities, so the law can bring them down. Once inside, I get fired up when I watch them restrain Highwing. Natty runs off to gather evidence, while I get a wee bit of murder in. Eventually I find Highwing with another hippogriff, and we ride them to safety. I'll go ahead and cover the rest of Natty's questline here, which to be honest wasn't nearly as interesting as Sebastian's or Poppy's. We basically work to bring down Theophilus Harlow, while Officer Singer complains about our meddling and continually rats Natty out to her mother. We find ourselves facing the Ashwinders somewhat frequently, adding several of them to my overall kill count. Natty turns out to be an animagus, like her father, who sacrificed himself to save her against people like the Ashwinders, and is a continual source of inspiration for why she wants to take down Harlow. After killing his goons, we wind up taking Harlow on directly in a somewhat goofy sequence, considering I cast Avada Kedavra on him and he still still survives. He tries to torture me by casting Crucio, prompting Natty to turn into her gazelle form to jump in front of it. This painful sacrifice ultimately brings her peace when she finally realizes what it was like to be in her dad's shoes and sacrificing herself for someone she cares about. Natty is a great character, but the biggest thing I was fascinated by was her stories about the Ugandan School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Wagadu, where they teach their students how to use magic without the use of wands. I would love to see more schools in this universe, but that's where Natty's story ends. Now that we have Sebastian and Natty's stories done, let's dive back into the main storyline for now. I meet Fig in the map chamber, where Charles Rookwood says he's heard a lot of noise near his portrait in his castle. I head there with Fig and we sneak by some enemies, except for the lucky few who are fondly remembered for increasing my kill total. We get a front row seat to some wizard and goblin drama that clearly shows Ranrock is in control.
Bring me the child.
Matthew Watterson did an incredible job of playing him. He's a menacing figure that aims to pull goblins from years of suppression by wizard kind. He just takes the worst possible approach in accomplishing that. With the castle cleared out, I begin the second trial, which is pretty similar to the first one, but just a little more difficult. I earn my first 3 deaths of the game in one fight where I'm blasted off the edge twice by a protector, and once because, much like in real life, I wasn't aware of my surroundings and simply ate shit. I do eventually beat them and the other guardians within the trial in order to find Rookwood's pensive. His memory shows us the first time Isadora showed the keepers her ability to remove pain from somebody. It succeeds in getting her father talking again and properly creeps out the keepers. Back in the map chamber, we're introduced to the third keeper and previous headmistress of Hogwarts, Neve Fitzgerald, who needs time to prepare the third trial. She takes so long Hogwarts freezes over, and I bump my kill total up by 1 in theory when stealing animals and relocating them to the room of requirement. While we wait for Neve to prepare the third trial, let's go meet Poppy Sweeting and complete her questline, shall we? Not as high stakes as Sebastian's story and more interesting than Natty's, Poppy's quest is entirely centered around poachers and interrupting their shady business. I'm all about that shit and want to rescue all the animals, so let's go. She tells me about a place called Horntail Hall she heard rumors about and wants to go find it. We run into some centaurs on our way there, ready to trample our puny wizard behinds, but we convince them we want to murder some poachers too, and that's exactly what we do outside and inside Horntail Hall. We discover it's a dragon fighting ring, and while we can't do much about the main show going on, we can nab this dragon egg and free its mother. Later, we discuss the dragons being controlled using the goblin-made collars matching the one that attacked me at the beginning of the game, and elect to go return the dragon egg to its mother nearby. We run into a couple Starks before the big bad Targaryen shows up and spits fire at us. We drop the egg in its place and earn the dragon's respect, but not quite enough to touch it as it flies away before Poppy can wipe her dirty hands on its nose. When it leaves, we're treated to this awkward sequence of these two kids kind of breathing all hard, like being so close to the dragon was this deep euphoric experience. Poppy's euphoria is short-lived when she has realization about the poachers and runs off, leaving me scared and alone in front of Honeydukes. Later, Poppy informs us the poachers got to her grandma and ransacked her house, uncovering information on a thought-to-be extinct bird called the Snidget that used to serve the role as the golden snitch in Quidditch. Poppy believes she can convince the centaurs to aid us in our search for the Snidget and nearly gets us killed, but thanks to one named Doran, we're spared and told where to begin our search for the bird. I meet Poppy there and begin killing any ugly aggressive animal that gets on our way of finding the cute nice animal. We find out Poppy was born from poachers and hated everything about it, so she saved Highwing and ran away to live with her grandmammy. And now we're here, killing poachers with our new centaur buddies and having the time of our lives before finding the Snidget eggs and watching those adorable puffball birds hatch. I wrap up Poppy's questline by meeting her in the Grand Hall back at Hogwarts, with her admitting I made this her best year at Hogwarts and that she's happy to call me her friend. Can't say Sebastian can say the same, but thanks Poppy. Now that the 3 main companion quests are done, it's time to go back to the main storyline where I ask Amit for help since he claims to know gobbledygook, which I'll need to enter a mine while Gott claims has some information on Ranrock's plans. Amit shows up puffing his chest as the best gobbledygook speaking wizard around.
Oh, Bacalio.
Thankfully, this overconfident fool only needs to be able to read it, and we head into the mine where I murder a bunch more goblins, while Amit whines about the excessive violence. We locate plans showing a big-ass drill, and Amit takes his chance to peace out of the story forever, while I meet Lodgok to tell him about what we saw. He lets me know about some journals from a long-dead goblin named Bragbar that Ranrock is using to locate the magical repositories fueling his power, and that he's afraid of what will happen if he locates the final one. I get word that the third trial is ready for me, but the biggest problem is that the entrance is located within the headmaster's office. This prompts Fig to give me a polyjuice potion that turns me into something much worse than a humanoid cat. It's Headmaster Black himself, in what is probably my favorite sequence in the entire game. Wandering the halls as Black conversing with students and teachers alike is absolutely hilarious.
Well, keep at it, Broom. And before you know it, you'll be as invisible as that new fifth year seems to be.
Well, they're as good as invisible to me, sir. Rotten little extortionist holding my diary hostage.
I wind up getting the password from the house elf Scrope and enter his office to meet Neve. She has me check out a book nearby that sucks me inside to roleplay as the main character in a fairy tale that lets us get our hands on the invisibility cloak, the Elder Wand, and the Resurrection Stone while combating Death's minions. I venture through a graveyard in search of Neve and eventually find her, ending the trial here and becoming one of my favorite overall quests in the game. I love stealth missions, and I enjoyed the overall style they used, and of course the fan service with the Deathly Hallows was a cool touch. We come up on another pensive and watch a memory of Isadora trying to convince Neve that what she's doing will help people with the assistance of the goblin Bragbar. She has the bright idea to yoink some pain right out of Neve's tits without consent, causing a further rift between her and the Keepers. The memory ends there, and I meet everyone back in the map chamber with the final Keeper's son Thakkar there to tell me the final trial will be ready shortly. While I wait for that, I go in search of my godboy Lodgok in another mine occupied by Ranrock's forces. I add a bunch more kills to the count, but the best part was riding through the mines on their trolley while invisible.
Who was on that car?
Deep underground, I find one of those massive drills and cave the ceiling in on top of it. This barely phases Ranrock, but what does phase him is finding out that his brother, Lodgok, was found sneaking around the mines with the last of Bragbar's journals. Lodgok was trying to give it to me, but now that it's in Ranrock's hands, he kills his own brother and ends his partnership with Rookwood, prompting a failed Avada Kedavra attempt from him while I make a run for it. I get back to Figgy and the Keepers as fast as I can and report on what just went down. Thakkar is like, "Get your ass to my trial, you little bitch," so I do. In order to unlock the door, I need to find a grab horn, a four-legged horned beast that gives us a long drawn-out fight. At the end, I decide to show my respect by bowing to it, then immediately rub my unwashed ass on its back while riding it. I plow through some poachers, not killing any of them, on my way back to the door. This trial doesn't have anything else after the grab horn sequence, just a pensive that shows us Thakkhar's memory of Isadora wielding her magic on students and building a massive repository below Hogwarts containing the mysterious magic. This all comes to a head when the Keepers try to stop her and she easily swats them aside until Thakkar blindsides her with the killing curse. Now it's up to me to stop Ranrock from accessing that repository, but I need a special wand that only Ollivander will craft for me, while Fig goes to inform the other teachers about what's been going on. Right after obtaining the wand, I exit the shop into Hogsmeade, where Victor Rookwood has cleared the streets for our confrontation. He wants to partner up, but can't stand the stubbornness of teenagers and says,
"Children should be seen and not heard,"
cluing us into the fact that goblins never cursed Sebastian's sister. Rookwood did, and upon that realization, one of his goons makes the terrible mistake of apparating behind me and teleporting us to a battleground, where I dispatch a total of 27 Ashwinders and take on their weak-ass boss by showing him how to use Avada Kedavra. I nonchalantly tell Fig I murdered Rookwood, and he's like, "Well, yeah, he deserved that, so good job, brah." This begins the finale, where we enter the Keeper's caverns and find out Ranrock and his loyalists have been able to breach the caverns and are already digging for the repository. With Fig's help, I add over 20 enemies to the kill count, including this awesome killtacular that took down 2 trolls and 3 goblins at once. The cavern opens up to show a whole lot more enemies around, but we have Professor Backup coming to our aid. They take on the majority of them, but that doesn't mean the kills stop there, as I add a few more goblins and this troll, despite the cinematic showing Professor Sharp trying to hijack a kill from me. While the teachers fend off the remaining enemies, Fig and I rush to find Ranrock, waving these 2 guardians down with a flick of my new wand. We enter the room containing the repository when Fig decides to ask me what I intend to do with it as the new keeper. I tell him I want that power for myself, disappointing Fig so badly he doesn't even care that Ranrock absorbs that power, turns into a dragon, and kills him. The fight with Ranrock has 3 different phases, and when starting the second phase, I quickly realized I messed up in not bringing enough Wiggenweld potions with me. I could have spent an extra 45 seconds brewing more to max them out and decided no, that's too much time. So instead, I spent much longer dying repeatedly to this dragon goblin asshole because I just didn't have the health potions available. Eventually, I went from relaxed position to gamer position and defeated Ranrock with one final defendo to become the final kill of the game. I absorbed the residual magic from the repository, giving off Anakin post-Order 66 vibes, and head back up to Hogwarts to finish the school year out and win the House Cup for Slytherin. Before we check the final numbers, I want to teach you this wonderful spell called Lycus and Subscribicus. I finished Hogwarts Legacy with 565 kills, far more than Voldemort ever accomplished in his reign of terror. I could have ended with just 3 deaths if I exercised some patience and maxed out my Wiggenweld potions before the final fight, but alas, I wound up with 10 deaths altogether. That gives me a kill-death ratio of 56.5. This game is now the longest game I've covered on the channel so far, clocking in at 27 hours and 55 minutes. That gives me a kill on average just shy of every 3 minutes and a death every 2 hours, 47 minutes, and 30 seconds. I loved Hogwarts Legacy. It doesn't do anything different as an open world game, and I wish it had more variety in the choices you make and their consequences, but as a fan of Harry Potter growing up, this is the exact game I wanted to play ever since I picked up that first book over 20 years ago. I mean, it broke viewership records on Twitch, proving that many others felt the same way. Avalanche truly delivered a magical experience, and I can't frickin' wait to see what they do with the sequel. I'll be back covering God of War, so keep an eye out for that and be sure to like, subscribe, all that YouTube nonsense that helps these videos out, and let me know what you thought about this game in the comments below. I'm King Deschain, signing off for now.